Twitch stream now. Alright.
Probably a good idea. Yep, looks like you're live. Yep.
Alright, are you gonna do your spiel first and then I start? Or should
No,
I just start now and you just go?
Well, I mean, we might as well. Introductions are in order. Go ahead and just introduce yourself.
Alright, I am MrBuckley. And I would be willing to put down at least $100 that I have put more time into Last Command than any other human being on Earth, and I'm proud of
that. I would say second because the guy who made this game was streaming besides him.
Okay.
Hi,
honestly, though, I would be willing to give Din $100. So.
Fair enough. Hi everybody, I'm Ghost Kumo. I was basically the person who started the leaderboard for this game. So what is this game? So this is Last Command. It came out in the year 2022 by Taiwanese developer Denia and No Stuck Game Studio. Published by Cray Spirit, known mainly for publishing the acclaimed Bullet Hell / Metroidvania hybrid Rabby Ribby and its upcoming successor Tebi. So, to give you just the very briefest of overviews before we get to this game, because it is very mechanically intensive and a whole lot goes on in this game. So we play as our fellow here, Python, is the name, and in the story of this game, you're supposed to go through this digital world of the future and search through the land of Circuit City. Not kidding, that's what they actually call it. With our fellow program, Faye, who is looking for sort of her meaning of her existence, and we're helping her out with that. You will see her once in this run because this is more of a boss rush type mode. The story mode of this game is a lot of cutscenes and has kind of slow navigation of generally light puzzles. This category was kind of made as a sort of distilled version of the game where we go through each individual boss's individual level with the time attack feature offered in extra mode. So this sort of serves as a pseudo-boss rush New Game Plus speedrun, fighting pretty much every boss in the game except for a couple of tutorial fights and the final boss, which is an unlosable story battle for reasons that are in the story. I do heavily recommend you play this game. There's a lot of things that we won't be showing off here that are in this game, and it's really cool. Finally, we're also doing this on Nightmare, which is the highest difficulty of the game. We'll kind of explain the differences between the difficulties here and there and why that makes this one really punishing. Okay, you just making sure.
Yeah.
So, might as well go ahead and get started. You go ahead and do your countdown. I can get into rattling off game tech. Alrighty, so the basic core of this game is it is like a Bullet Hell meets Snake, and you will see what I mean. Our character here, normally it's a bunch of circles, but we have the Halloween pack, so it's a bunch of ghosties. You move around on this space, and you collect these data, which make your snake longer. So yeah, it is like the old game Snake, or Python as it was sometimes called. The general Bullet Hell aspect of the game is that you collect the data and then you fire attack your opponents. Thankfully, it does have auto lock. And so you need to collect enough to do enough damage to break through a boss's phase. Now, this is the first boss of the game. He's meant to be generally fairly easy. Real quick, you can't do damage here until the boss stops, or else he soft locks. It's a weird quirk with the New Game Plus aspect of this particular run. So he's going around collecting data, and then once you collect, I believe it's 6 with his loadout, you go into what is called overclock mode. Overclock mode lets you fire significantly faster, and just generally provides a whole bunch of different benefits. So the idea here is to just collect a whole bunch of data that he picks up around the screen, makes his snake longer, dodges bullets, or whatever the heck enemies throw at him, and then fire it straight back at the enemy's heart. Once you've done 100% of the boss's phase heart, you can attack him. And that's already the first boss, so that was really, really quick. See what the time is, 1:15, not bad. So these are the Chapter 1 bosses. 3 of them are named after the Lights, the Knights of the Round, Bedivere, Dwayne, and Lancelot. Each one has kind of their own gimmick. they're really meant to introduce you to the game. So some of the core mechanics to keep in mind with this game. The only thing that, at least for the first phase, that can damage you is red. So if anything is on screen that is red and it overlaps with your hitbox, you will take damage. Unlike many other shmups, you do have a health bar, but on Nightmare, this health bar depletes really fast. You have a couple of iframes, but not a whole lot. So if you take damage, you'll take 35 points of damage.
Yeah, it's
anytime you get hit on Nightmare.
Of your health.
Yeah. So 3 hits on any given phase will kill you.
It is important to note, though, that ending a phase heals me, I think, like 10.
Yeah, I think it's... I don't know if it's 10 or 20. I might be misremembering from hard.
Something. It's enough that, at least, if I can end a phase after having taken 2 hits, I can take another. Also,
Yeah, so it is...
I shouldn't have done.
Yeah, so it is worth noting that... So I haven't really gotten into the modules. We'll get to that shortly. It is worth noting that... I'm losing my train of thought here. Okay. Every time he collects a piece of data, his snake gets longer. If he gets hit on the back end of the snake, then he loses data, but he doesn't take damage. It has to be, I believe, one of the first 3 like ghost heads here, I guess, that he actually will take damage. So it sucks to lose data like that, but it's not too big a deal. Anytime he's firing, or anytime that, like, he presses the spacebar, he can go into what is called analyze mode, or observe mode. And if you've ever played Toho, it's the same as Focus, where you move slower and you have a lot finer movement. That's the second boss done really well. You move slower, which allows you to consolidate all of your little snake pieces into one little part, and have finer tuned movement. But of course, you move slower, so that's the risk of doing this. And we're trying to go fast.
Real
you also have
Tom.
Yeah,
I see your methods. I will go right.
Yeah, you do also have 2 dashes at any point in time. The little white indicators above the ghost heads indicates whether his dash is available or on cooldown. Once again, we're on the lookout for anything that is red, that is deadly. So I did mention that this is sort of a New Game Plus type run. Bucky has all of the game's modules, which are essentially your power-ups, unlocked from the get-go for this particular run. The first of which is the active module, which is a button that you can press that will use some of your MP that is located, the health bar is on the top left, right below that is the MP meter. The one that he's using is called data collection. Data generation. It creates 6 data that spawn on the screen. He's going to want to be often towards a wall because they spread out in a way that becomes quite annoying to get if he does it in the center. He has another one that when he is in overclock mode, i.e. the game says he's in overclock mode after he collects 6 data, he does 15% additional damage. Every collection, he has one where every time he collects a piece of data, it like fires a tiny little bullet at the boss. It does a very tiny amount of chip damage, but more importantly, it keeps the boss from regenerating. In this game, if you don't do damage for too long, or if you damage a boss but you don't keep the damage going, the boss starts to regenerate. The 2 ways to deal with this are to keep doing damage, or to brush up your hitbox against the boss's heart. This solidifies the damage. But this little bit of chip damage is what he will use to inflict damage against the boss whenever he's not in a position where he can safely brush up against the boss.
Should be noted, one thing that is used, especially in the later fights, and also a lot there, is what the little 5 damage does is every time you solidify the core, you do what can be called like a heart boost or a core boost, where you get vulnerability frames that last quite a bit, so you can kind of survive in through a lot of like enemy bullet projectiles by just, as long as you keep picking up data and doing that little damage to the heart and then solidifying it, you get a lot of good iframes off of it.
Here we're coming up on Origin, one of the first gatekeepers of the video game. Unlike the previous bosses, he's fairly limited on mobility because he has this giant barrier that you can only dash through. And he loves to just charge around and hit you and catch you unawares whenever you don't have access to your dash. So he has to manage his dashes here. We also are introduced to purple bullets. Purple bullets will damage you, but if you dash in their general direction, you'll bounce off of them, gain a couple of iframes, and refresh your dash. So Bucky can kind of just go flying around
real quick. That was important getting there. If you kill Origin anywhere on that phase while he's on screen, he goes through a really long animation where he like has to stand still for a bit and then rev up his charge again and then go off screen. If you kill him when he's off screen there, then he immediately spawns and starts the next phase. And then if you end that phase fast enough, there's no bullet patterns to deal for that one, and then it ends super fast. That is something that does not happen very often, so I'm really happy that that went smoothly.
Yeah, you've been doing really well not getting hit thus far. This game is such that, like, when you're playing on Nightmare, it can quickly snowball out of control. I can assure you. These are just the early game bosses, but everything he is doing at this point is not easy. It's definitely something that he's built up over like the last year of practice. The last module I haven't touched on, by the way, is Magnet. So he got hit there, but it was late enough in the phase that the boss had already taken 100% damage. You just needed to finish it. So Magnet, whenever you're in Analyze mode, expands the radius around which you can collect data, which is really, really nice. So he's just able to stockpile a ton of ammo here to fire at the boss, which, thankfully, the one shmup aspect of this game that doesn't remain from a lot of shmups is aim. You do not have to worry, your damage will lock onto the boss's health. So every boss has a certain number of health bars noted on the top. The width of the health bar usually indicates how much damage you need to deal. Origin is kind of a special case in that his final 2 health bars are story-based, meaning that at this point there's no way that he can lose the fight.
Damage that I took earlier was intentional because you cannot end this fight until you spawn until you spawn Faye here by dying, basically. So I wanted to have my health bar low for that phase so I could spawn Faye as fast as possible.
Yeah, so Faye comes in here and just totally steals your kill. This is the only time we see her in this particular run. She's more of a regular player in the story, but yeah.
Also, this is where right or left comes into play. A very stupid game I play with my friends is that data can spawn on the left or right here, and depending on where it spawns, I can save or lose like a quarter. Oh, it was left. The top she lied to me. I can save or lose like a quarter of a second.
Yeah, he only needs to do 1 bullet of damage there, and then that's the end of that. So that's all of the chapter 1 bosses done.
1 bullet and 1 pickup. It's just barely more health than 1 bullet has to offer.
So, on to the chapter 2 bosses. Alas, we don't have a quick menu. This category is kind of arbitrary, but here's where we start to get into the meat of the game. We've talked about a lot of the different mechanics of the game and kind of just how they're introduced, but it's a pretty simple game so far. Things get really wild once we start getting into this chapter. So there are these 3 bosses called the Publicity Officials. This first one is called Gardening. He spits out around a bunch of plants. They fire bullets that like to split off and then, like, I wouldn't say lock onto you, but they follow your direction. One thing I don't think I've mentioned, I might have mentioned this earlier on, just to reiterate though, whenever you see like a little diamond form around a boss's heart, that means that they have a shield, which means the Bucky can only do damage in overclock mode. Typically because of the 15% bonus that he wants to get, or because of the 15% bonus he gets while being in overclock mode, he wants to just collect data as fast as possible, avoid taking damage and losing all of his data, and then firing it all off in one big round, so he doesn't have to collect as much, and B, he maximizes that 50% damage bonus. So yeah, this phase right here, it's kind of a cluster.
Now this one I might also be able to sell off dashing backwards through purple objects. I can't. That actually was very good. like, whoa, that was some wild, that was some wild RNG right there. Nice.
So he's saving his. So he only has the ability to do data generation about twice per fight because of the MP cost of it. So he saves it for the most troublesome fights. There have been a few runners of this game who've innovated on strats. We used to use a lot of bombs back in the day, which you set a bomb on the screen and it blows up a few seconds later. But as it turns out, being able to generate 6 data on command is really useful.
Yeah, when I was first testing out strats, I tried data creation because I thought that it could be fast, but I was really bad with it, and I assumed that was the game's fault. So I like counted it out as like, oh, okay, it's not actually that good. You can't use it.
Yeah, so here's where this game casually, I think a lot of people started to realize just how like inventive this game starts to get. So you see this boss is kind of standard. Really quick, the orange bullets. They're inactive if you're moving normal speed, but if you're in analyze or observe mode, they turn orange and they can hit you. So they actually punish you for slowing down and focusing. So
comes into play in the later boss that has 2 phases that are the exact same, except for the second one. He fills up most of the screen.
By the way, how confident are all of you in your ability to do quick math? So this boss's gimmick is quick math. You need to basically follow the math on the screen and get yourself to the safe zone, or just kill the boss. Like when I played this cat.
This is actually one of the bosses where like doing core moves is super important because the old strat was just use a module that would increase the iframes when you dash, and so just iframe through all this math. But that module does not have place in the current meta, so you gotta either learn how to do math or just time out the arcade correctly.
Yeah, and it does start to get real scary when you like. It's kind of one of the risks of this particular loadout is overclock mode. Like his snake gets really long, and he does not want to lose too many hits. By the way, the quick math gets harder. So yeah, he is able to make use of the very slight amount of iframes you get after you dash to avoid taking damage from the lasers, but it's a very tight timing.
Like right there, that's where a part actually
Something also worth noting, the 3 modules you bring are of up to 3 main colors, green, blue, and red, and depending on what set you have, in Bucky's case, it's 2 blue and 1 red. It can change kind of your properties. Some can lower the amount that you need to be in overclock mode. This particular loadout increases the max amount of damage he can hold by 6. So he can go into overclock mode at 6, but fill up as much as 12.
Well, that's not...
Alright.
That helps a lot because there are a lot of phases in this game that require 9, but the most important thing with running double blue is that every data you pick up has a 25% chance, or maybe it's a 20% chance, to just spawn another piece of data.
25, yeah.
It's just incredibly effective.
Yeah, he just basically is literally creating bullets out of thin air. Anyway, so this boss is a bunch of trumpets, so you get to hear a lot of the doot doots. Happy Halloween, everybody. I know that's not quite October, but we're getting to spooky season. We've been playing the Ghost Halloween themed skin for Python here. Yeah, so this fight really wants to like emphasize purple bullets and the dash refreshes that it gives you. So Bucky just collecting data here and not getting hit like a boss.
I have like basically every strat that I've figured out for this game, except for I guess Origin, like animation skins. has all been taken from other people. There is a single strat in this game that I pioneered myself, so I really want to pull it off. And that is ending the last phase before it begins. Because for basically any phase in the game, like Kuma mentioned it real quickly on the first fight, if I ended one of his phases too quickly, it would have soft locked me. And that can happen on a lot of fights, but it's usually not optimal, so it doesn't really matter. But it can technically happen on the last phase of this fight, but because it's the last phase, oh wait, I think I still got it. Maybe? Okay, I think I got it. Yes, okay, I got it. Yeah, so...
So it is worth noting that bosses tend to like have a part of their phase where they can spawn data. Usually during that you're not supposed to be able to generate data, but because he has the data generation active module, he can just skip a boss's phase. And here we go to 1000 phases, my personal least favorite fight in this entire game. This boss had me walled for
this is where the chances of this not becoming a no-death run, like, skyrocket.
Yeah, so 1000 Faces is a recurring boss here, who's kind of one of the antagonists of the game's story. Naturally, he has kind of a Joker motif to him, sends out a bunch of playing cards. A lot of these attacks get really tricky to try and follow. Like, the biggest trouble that these attacks cause is these cards move in an S-shaped pattern, which really takes getting some used to. And then now he's going to bounce around the screen, and after he bounces enough times, the ball is just going to charge straight at Bucky and break the pattern.
Basically all of this, I think that's actually the first time I miscounted. For all of these fights, I'm counting every piece of data I pick up to try and end it, like, the moment I get enough. And if I'm just short, it usually doesn't matter that much, unless the boss is sealed it. Because if it's sealed and I'm short, then I need to pick up 6 data points again, which is bad.
It is worth noting that you can move around, or that you can dash while you're in analyze mode. And so if you're in overclock mode, you can actually like still collect more data even if you are full. Like once you fired some, you can replenish it with new data and still be in overclock mode as long as you don't let go of the focus/analyze button. And dashing really gives a lot of depth to this. These questions have to do with sort of this character's, I don't know, personality and story. So we ask some very weird questions about progressive aesthetics. I think he thinks he's some sort of like
saving.
Yeah. I was gonna say like some sort of messiah.
Something.
I was trying to come up with the word there and I was like forgetting for a second. Anyway, yeah, so thankfully these phases don't have a ton of health, but yeah, this part is not the hardest part of this boss. This is one of those few bosses I actually think is generally harder at the start than it is in like the middle. The final 2 phases though can be quite a pain.
Yeah, which is specifically why usually on that earlier ball phase I use a data creation usage, one of my 2 usages for the fight. But it makes the final phase, I finally get 1 data creation for it, which is fine and it's fast, but it's also very hard. So instead, I'm just going to save both of them for here, so I can just get the phase. Oh god, please. Oh no. Oh no. Bad things are happening, and that's where I die. Oh, okay, well.
Well, sadly we are not 1CCing, but yeah, the nice thing about this game is when you take a death and you've cleared, you know, any of those, you see on the top of the screen, there's a little triangle pointing down on certain health bars. That means those are checkpoints. You have 3 continues on any given boss you run out of checkpoints, or you run out of continues and then have to restart the boss from the start. So he does get the restart here, which is thankfully at his skill level means
that's how it should have gone.
yeah.
That was
Thankfully means
damage that's right there. That was clean.
Mm-hmm.
Should be noted, in case I do have to restart, more fights, when I restart from checkpoint, my health gets replenished to full, but my energy only, or my mana, if you want to put it earlier, only goes to whatever point it was at when I hit the checkpoint. So, like, that's why it's, so if I had used Data Creation earlier, I would have only had half my mana for that one.
Yeah, so here we're getting into the Chapter 3 bosses. We'll be fighting 3 different versions of Samurai here. This is sort of like this fight's actually the only optional one in the story that shows up in this particular category. Because it is all bosses, we do this one. Her kind of gimmick is you see like an outline of where she's going to attack, and then the attack appears. It's kind of neat. Also, we get introduced to blue. Anything that is blue, if you are holding still, it won't damage you, but if you're moving, it will damage you. You can dash through it though. It is like standard fire in that you can use iframes to get through things. A lot of this game just kind of comes down to pattern recognition and ultimately learning how any given boss's attacks come out. But yeah, it definitely takes a lot of practice and getting used to how bosses work. We've talked a lot to compare this game to like Mobs, Toho, and stuff. I've definitely seen a lot of people compare it to Undertale because of like the graphical style and like the use of hearts for indication. It's kind of like, I would say in a weird way, like a realization of like a system that game kind of started. And you'll definitely see that as some of the bosses get weirder towards the end of the game.
I think that really starts at the final boss of Area 3. Master Tao is like the fight where I realized like there's games like one game that I played not recently is Everhood, and it's games like that where like they start with such a like pretty simple basic outline of like, okay, there's projectiles, dodge them, and then hit them. But it doesn't really get stale because the creator just does so many different things without straying from what that base is. And that's why Tao is really, really hard.
Yeah, this boss I think is kind of an indicator of, you know, like the expansion of the ideas. Like you see the slash attack, then like the falling leaves. It like fits the theme of like the, you know, the platonic myth of the like Edo era samurai, or not Edo era, like the samurai of feudal Japan. It's like the falling leaves and the swords and all that, like the
fighting to win and honor.
Yeah, it definitely had a lot of fun with kind of like setting this game up, even though basically everything in this game is like a digital program in the far-flung future.
There's some times where I don't necessarily count wrong, but my math accounts for that I gain all the data I need fast enough that the little 5 damage like things add up so I can actually beat the boss. So sometimes if I'm too slow to beat a phase, then I won't actually have enough. Oh hey, I got the little, that's a glitch that happens every now and then where data just sticks to you. Cool.
Seeing you like somehow avoid getting hit on those wave attacks, like those waves at short range are always so scary.
Yeah, the waves are pretty bad. Especially on that phase. They can that phase is one of those ones where like you really want to beat it quickly because otherwise it just never gets easier. What am I? Okay, I'm on the 8 phase. So 7, 8.
I will like to mention, it might be hard for some people to kind of notice the difference between like the light blue and like gray and orange in some of these attacks. The game did get a patch actually earlier this summer, I believe, that has a better colorblind mode for stuff like that. So if you're concerned about the color blind aspects of this game, A, I would recommend checking the game out with those features. I believe it still has a demo on Steam, and B, the developer actually has a public Discord for the game, which is usually taking feedback and suggestions. It's been very good about adding stuff since the game released. There were a lot of like little things, such as a map that a lot of people complained in the story mode you didn't have access to, that were later added to the game by popular request.
That was actually one thing I showed this game to one of my friends, and the first thing he does is just go to Steam and look at the reviews on it, and then he laughed, and I was like, what was it? And he's like, well, I saw this review that just complained about how there wasn't a map, and then the creator responded like, alright, cool, I added a map.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is the Baba is you phase of the game, where like the words are conditional.
I've never heard it described that way.
Yeah, so the words like are conditional in what they allow you to do. So if you get rid of all the knots, you in fact can attack.
Might not pick that. Besides that, it's basically just like a retooling of the origin fight.
Yeah, there's
Way
some
harder.
trickiness to make it even harder than it was before. I should stress this is on the highest difficulty of this game. Like, I played on the second highest difficulty of my casual playthrough, and it took me about 22 hours to finish this game. So, yeah, some of these bosses I was stuck on for a while, because, like, realistically 85% of your playtime is going to be on the bosses. Hence we made, like, a boss rush type category. You cannot attack. Yeah, I definitely did think of the Ava reference at least once there.
Because unlike this is basically copying both. He has, you know, patterns like this, but the like going vertically to like try and find you basically is straight up taken from Lancelot. But while Lancelot's is entirely predictable and like plannable, this one is not. Sometimes he just decides that he wants to hit you, and you just have to accept it.
Yeah, so Chapter 3 has the most bosses, but a lot of these boss fights are shorter than typical bosses of a given chapter, and the main reason for that is like, so these are simulant fights, which are designed to like, you know, recreate bosses that have already been in the game with like a twist on them. The final phase of them is just one attack, so it may look like this boss has 6 phases, it really only has 5.
And it's really only 4, because outside of Sim 1000, which is one of my least, it probably is my least favorite fight in the game, the first phase really isn't much of a challenge. It's more of just a balance between picking up data and destroying the knots. God,
So we have the
I'm
third
not looking
samurai
forward to
fight.
Sim 1000. The proud owner of the highest health bar in the entire game at 911 health.
Fun fact, the composers for this game are all listed on every individual boss's like track name. It'll like actually have the composer name. I believe the most prolific of the bunch was Luminash. But yeah, you can check out the soundtrack on this game on Spotify, because I've seen a couple of comments in chat about the soundtrack. It is full of bangers, and they are available on Spotify via Chris Spirit's account. Also, I love this attack because like some of the words are in English and some of them are in Chinese. Like, it really gives you this like sense of, you know, a digital facsimile of this boss. You not having dash attack, like, The part of that like hurts my soul that's not in the route, because I used that so much in my story playthrough when I was like, oh, 98%, more like 100%. Yeah, so now she summons these wavelengths of fire at a much quicker pace. So he's trying to be optimal here, does not have a lot of time to get to it. The one thing is that I believe it's like always purple and always blue. It's just so if you
it's only the starting one that's like kind of difficult, but then from that point on I know exactly what's going to be.
Yeah, so he knows that that's a blue one, and then there's purple, and there's blue, purple, blue, purple. It almost gave me a heart attack there on that last one, but no, that was a super clean fight.
Yeah, Sam was hard. Sam Simulant and Sam Extra, which is the one optional fight, the first Sam fight, are both interesting in that if you take them slow, they're super easy, because the way that their attack predictions work, if you just basically move diagonally while in analyze mode, you'll like never get hit. Or move straight in the Sam Extra fight, because like all of their attacks will like try to predict you like barely moving, and so your hitbox will always move enough, you don't have to worry about it. And now here it is, the worst fight in the game that I really, really hope I don't get stuck on. Because not only the one thing is that Kumo mentioned that all these fights are short, but the issue is that there's no checkpoints past that very first page, so a death is really annoying to deal with. Here it is. All of these background cogs are current on deck, so if I get in the way of any of them while trying to attack the boss, I will take damage, and that's bad. Okay.
Yeah, once again, making use of the fact that if he generates data near a corner.
I really hope I made that look easy, because that phase is horrendous. Just because of how many spots it closes off where you just cannot attack.
Yeah, as somebody who's played this game on Nightmare, that impressed me, and I verified this run. So here actually introduces a couple of the new mechanics to Chapter 3, which are gravity zones. He's actually being dragged down to the bottom of the screen here, and then there's also the no dash zones.
No dash comes in the next phase.
Yeah,
Along
definitely.
with, strangely, this game has two different signifiers for gravity zones. It has purple and like purple areas and like blue lines. Not sure why they're differentiated, because they're basically the same. Also, this phase is really easy but really slow, and so I can totally die by simply being an impatient loser. Because like really, as long as you just wiggle back and forth, it's very easy to not get hit.
Definitely one of the areas of shmups, if you're familiar with like Toho, that comes into play in this game in at least a few places, is making sure you don't move too much. Because like you only need to, when you dodge something, you don't need to like dramatically dodge it. You only need to dodge it by just enough. So sometimes like conservation of movement really matters. All right, Tao. This is like the boss that I often show people with this game of like, here's why this game is really cool. So thus far we've explained that everything is color-based. So red is always dangerous. Purple is you can dash into it to reset your dash. Blue is you need to be standing still, and purple is and orange is you need to be moving. This boss only has red, blue, and purple for most of it, but he can change the rules. So here he says word
myself, dash through blue, dash through blue, dash through blue, because if I don't repeat that to myself, I am going to not follow that. Alright, so now it's...
Yeah, so he replaces the rules. So word base here, purple is blue and blue is purple. So, for any of you hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh players, I'm sorry. I might not be able to recommend this game because you have to read.
I really hope my friend Easy doesn't sack. He's not only a Yu-Gi-Oh player, but he's also a Fire Emblem Heroes player. This phase is really bad if you don't end it soon enough, because sometimes those blue pillars will come with the red balls coming at you and then you cannot avoid. I got super lucky there where there's like I don't know exactly how big it is, but I feel like there's like a 1 frame delay on when you're inside a blue object and actually like direct a dash. So I was able to dash diagonally out of a blue object there to avoid a red one, and really lucky. Also, me talking again is making me forget the routing and not use data spawns when I should be using it. That's how it worked out.
Yeah, so here he can't use dashes. That's the gimmick here, and why there's a bunch of X's around the ghosties. And so now the center he cannot use dashes for this phase.
The annoying phases just kind of waste your time. I think I'm at 8 phase.
So you see the boss is just like already replenishing the little bit of chip damage he's built up over this phase. That's why it's important to solidify damage and like constantly be picking up damage.
And Nightmare, that's honestly one of the like biggest impacts of the Nightmare run, is that the rate at which bosses will refill after not attacking them is significantly increased. So like you have to keep up the pressure.
Yeah, I would say the difficulty spike between Expert, which is the game's quote-unquote hard difficulty, and Nightmare is probably like I would say it's the smallest, maybe between like story and standard difficulty or the easy and normal difficulties. But like hard into Nightmare isn't as big as some of the other ones, but like the biggest change in playstyle that this enforces is that need to constantly be like doing damage and solidifying, playing more aggressive. So yeah, now we have both gravity and no dash, which is real bad. Got through that phase nice and quickly. The gravity and no dash screens are real rough to deal with because one of the types of things coming at you, you need to dash, and the other one, you need to hold still, and you can't do one of those in each, and so you have to like know exactly where to position yourself.
My old
here.
route actually was to use data spawns on those last 2 phases, just to avoid them. But not only is it faster, but also just good practice. It's really just those phases are one of those cases where you have to end them fast, because it's really once like it starts throwing like the pillars into the mix and stuff like that just everything goes horrible.
Yeah, so here we get to the final 1,000 faces. Thankfully, there's only 2 phases of him, and then we get introduced to his favorite pet, Tyrant, and that is really what this boss is. We fight Tyrant twice. This is actually the second of the 2. The rules for this category is you fight the bosses in each quadrant in any order, so Bucky just chooses this particular order.
I'm gonna try this next phase, despite being pretty short and only requiring 7 data, is probably the one I die to the most on this boss, so it's slow, but a safe strat is to use data creation on this phase to hopefully end it immediately, so... Okay, well that actually might be doable. Yeah, okay. Okay. I was worried for a second because I missed a single piece of data from that data creation. And then this phase is the first use where Magnesis really was like used in runs. Like before it was even used in the blue. It just sit in the middle and it just spawns data around you and you instantly end the phase.
Yeah, you can actually hold both fire and here you can just hold fire while you're there, and it like collects data and fires it at the same time. This is the phase where things start to get real janky. There's a lot to keep track of in this phase. It is worth noting that the pluses that he drops on the screen are static and that he fires at them from a different angle every time. So it's like, it's a particular weird thing you have to keep track of there.
Grab that one. Another cage where it's faster to use data creation on this phase, but the next phase actually, even though I'm at 1 health, it's way more dangerous. This phase sometimes just kills you. It just randomly spawns red, and it can spawn red in a way where you literally cannot regenerate your dash fast enough.
Yeah, this fight's pretty rough in casual play. So.
Okay, now I have enough. Alright. Okay. I wasn't actually paying attention to my health bar, so I didn't know if I had enough to damage tank that. Thankfully, this last phase isn't a phase, so.
Yeah, it's a sad story time phase.
Oh god, that moment of terror where I thought I was gonna die there. I was confident. But...
Yeah, this boss loves to summon these like lightning strikes at you, and they're really hard to fall. Like to the point where when I played this game, I actually would just dash through them and use the iframes rather than just like hold still whenever he shoots blue lightning, which is the intended strat.
It's
just,
again
like,
one of those fights that like I almost wish that the old strat still worked, because my old strat at least was abusing a module that like pentuples your iframes from dash, so you can just go through everything. And so that phase was basically gold to me. That would just like dash through all the lightning that struck from left to right. But now I actually have to play around it. You still actually can dodge still, I think, just like you can dodge through these projectiles, because it's only the tips, even though it looks like the whole thing is danger. Every now and then, this game is dumb in that, I'd say this game is dumb, but really it's amazing. It's that I can be in focus mode where, you know, my whole body is condensed into like one segment, and yet somehow I'll get hit and lose some of my body segments, and yet not take any damage, and it does not make sense, but it's how the game functions, I guess.
So I have to thank a buddy of mine by the name of Jello Knife, who played this game around the same time that I did and introduced me to a strat on this particular boss that I basically... It's the strat we mentioned where you hold down the fire button while you're in the boss's like circle. So that is one of the strats that I know offhand. We do have a couple of other runners. Like 2 letters, 2 numbers, a runner from Taiwan.
YH77, I believe, or YH09.
Yeah, YH07. Who really challenged this category and brought in a whole bunch of new strats that Bucky's adapted for his own attempts.
He actually used a lot of rainbow strat, which is, I think I cut you off when you were talking about the difference. Okay, there was. I still want that down there. Oh, that was. I didn't know. But so like blue and red, you went over like what those give you. If you take all green, then it gives you more energy to work with, which sounds good, but unfortunately, just the way the routing works out, it's very helpful for story mode difficulty, which is the easiest one, but not so much on Nightmare. And then Rainbow, if you have one of each color, makes it so every time you pick up a data, you deal 5 points. So if you have the blue that gives you 5, it gives you 10. And is that all it does? It has another effect, doesn't it?
I don't quite remember.
Forget. I started running Rainbow to kind of learn it because YSO7 did so well with it, but the more I tested it, the more I found out that actually blue is just optimal basically everywhere.
Alright, time for, in my opinion, like, the coolest boss in this game.
Oh, yeah. Fun fact about this boss, I fought her for 7 hours straight one day trying to get a time under 4:18, I believe, was the time I was trying to beat. I believe my record now is 2:45 or 2:46. So yeah, it's come a long way from what it was back in the day.
Yeah, so she can flip dimensions. It makes this fight really peculiar because it just completely throws off your perspective. Important to note though is he cannot solidify damage on this phase because you just can't get up close enough to the heart. And this is where that little bit of chip damage he gets every time he collects data like really comes into play. Especially in a casual playthrough, like you really want that particular module in casual because it's so hard to get damage to stick to this boss.
Oh crap, okay, this count.
And it is very easy to get hit.
Yeah, for this, and there's one other fight, the one after the final boss that will use 3D. And if you're on Nightmare, I've tried multiple times to do other ones, but if you don't have the one that does the like little zip damage, it's an incredibly difficult fight. Like, you have to get really good spawns, and even then it takes way longer. It's almost a requirement, which some people did complain about, that on Nightmare it, you know, is incredibly difficult to have that work out, where if you try to do a run without those, I do understand, but I don't know, get good.
I don't remember the exact frame data with this game, by the way, but I think it's like you have 6 frames of invulnerability upon dash or upon solidifying. So
I know it's, at least according to the module, it's 0.1 seconds, so whatever that equates to in frames.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd say 6 frames, but I think you're running at like 165 frames per second, so I don't know how that quite works out.
That's another one of those phases that's incredibly difficult and can go bad very quickly. So that's why, like, honestly, the biggest benefit of data, bringing data spawns into the route is just the fact that it lets us get the worst phases. The phases that I just do not want to deal with, and that one is definitely one of them. It's a fun phase, it's a very fun phase, but when you're trying to go fast, it just does not want you to succeed.
Yeah, so here we have 3D and gravity. There's definitely some abusive iframes here. Thankfully, Hime's attacks come in a pattern, so he knows where the deadly spots are going to be beforehand.
That's also, this is one fight that I almost enjoyed it better without the Magnesis strat, because, like, I don't know, there's a joy in learning the rhythm of going back and forth between the 2 places the data spawns on those phases.
Yeah,
and
so
just
I don't
learning that is really satisfying.
Yeah, so I don't know how much we've touched on it, but the data spawns are pseudo-random. There are 6 spots that, like, any normal point of data will spawn in addition to data generation and the 25% that he gets. They're pseudo-random in that, like, when you get, like, they're like random, but when you grab one, it's like it's not going to spawn in the same spot again for a while. So you see these 6 little squares here and there. Anyway, so this is the final boss and the most Undertale-esque for anyone who remembers Photoshop Flowey. I definitely think the creator of this game got some inspiration from that. This boss kind of breaks the 4th wall in some very weird ways that you'll see later on. That just feel like somewhat of a mental breakdown, which I have to imagine was caused by just the anxiety of working on this game for so long. Because the developer basically quit his job for like a year and a half to like work on this game full time. And as anyone in game dev can tell you, that gets pretty stressful. So yeah, this is the final boss. Time will be after the final hit boss, or the hit of this phase, or of this boss. Still quite a few more. I'm not gonna jinx you. I'm not gonna jinx you like that.
Here's another case of this phase is really, really bad, and so that's why we just don't play it. Oh, and I missed time. Oh, okay. That's bad. Yeah, okay, well now you get to see why this phase is bad. Not bad. It's alright.
Yeah, if you miss your dashes, you can get punished really hard.
This is one where I did it a bit there, where I double back real quick to try and make the game think I'm going the opposite direction, so it spawns those feet stamping down away from me. It's really the only time that gets used intentionally, of just doubling back. I have tried to use it consistently in the Thousand Faces fight when he uses the melody attacks, because those also predict you, but the timing is weirder for those, whereas for that one it's pretty simple to get down.
By the way,
here's where the fourth wall break stuff kind of comes
lol.
Game, and also we get to read the hateful YouTube comments.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's more Steam reviews, huh?
For the record, author, I believe, is the term that they tend to use in China and Korea and Japan, and sometimes Japan, for creators of indie games. So
that last phase is, on my first playthrough, was without a doubt the hardest phase in the entire game for me to ever beat. And
he's skipping the part where it goes upside down. Also, we see all the Steam reviews of all the really bad games on the bottom here. This phase gets hectic.
Yeah, this is the phase I'm kind of upset at myself, because I spent a long time practicing it and I got really good at it, and then I got complacent in being good at it, and now I'm bad at it again.
Yes, 2 more health bars to go, and then that will be the run.
Hopefully that will be it. This is, without a doubt, it's not just the last phase that's the hardest in the entire game. There we go. Okay.
GG, under 55 minutes.
Yeah, the dream of this category that I am going to keep running this game until I get is a sub 50. But you know what? For just one death, I'll take it. I'll take it. I was worried it would be more when I started practicing full runs to try and learn consistent strats. My first run I died 5 times on. So there it is.
GG's.
GG, man.
Yeah. Some of these are New Game Plus strats that circumvent some really hard things, but I cannot stress enough just how hard most of these fights.
Oh yeah, I don't think we mentioned it. For the first 4 fights in the game, you only have 1 dash. In the original game, you don't unlock your second dash until you get to Area 2, which makes that Origin fight where he blocks off half the screen, you can only pass it through dashing, way harder.
Yeah. Yeah, I played this game on hard, and I was on the first 1,000 faces for almost 3 hours, my first casual playthrough. Granted, some of that was I had to split it up across 2 sections, but it's you get to that, then you get to Tau, and it's just my gameplay kept getting worse with Tau the more I played it. I'm I need a break.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was actually sick from work at the time when I was fighting the final boss. I just fought it over and over again for hours. I spent an entire day just dedicated to that, laying in bed feeling horrible but loving every minute of it, except for that third to last phase. That thing was horrible. It's one of those things that goes to prove that this game is so well designed, in that it is, no matter how much RNG there are in the bullet timings and stuff, but when you really practice it and you get better at it, even the hardest phases can actually be like super consistent and easy once you just get a better feel for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I
Is
think
there
that'll
anything
do
more
it
you'd
for
like
us.
to say? Any final messages? Real quickly, I didn't actually give him a shout out, but Tom's just doing chat. I think my boy Flop tuned in for a second. Any of my friends in the art gallery Discord tuning in, shout out, and also thanks to Thomas for being wrong on the origin guess. Lost me a quarter of a second.
Well, yeah. If y'all see this game, you think it's interesting, it's on Steam for like I think $18, and it goes on sale every now and then.
Yeah,
Really
please play
cool
this game.
really lovingly made. The developer is like he's been fine tuning it for a while, and like it's a simple concept done really well that comes up with new things. I highly recommend this game, and if you somehow are interested in speedrunning, we do have a speedrun.com page and a link to the Discord for discussing strats here, although I think Bucky has been the main tenet of the Discord.
Yeah, vast majority of it. Although really like I always wanted to get into speedrunning, and when I played this game, I had a ton of fun with it. And I saw the extra boss mode and the fact that every boss gives you a time at the end. I was like, "Oh, is anyone speedrunning this game?" And I looked up if anyone had, and I saw that Ghost Kumo had a run, and he had a Discord listed. And from him, I learned like the early strats. And my goal when I first started was just was to beat the expert run time, which was listed as an hour and 30 minutes on Nightmare. And then after I did that, I was like, all right, I'm gonna beat Ghost Kumo's normal time on Nightmare. And then
My times were pretty early on. We used very antiquated strats. So yeah, shout out to Bucky for coming up with a lot of these like really fast strats. And then later on, YH07 comes up with a whole bunch more that
yeah,
Bucky's
I
adapted.
decided that this game was done, that I had like gotten the best time possible of, what was it, an hour and 7 minutes. I think I was like, this is the peak, I'm never gonna do it. And then YH07 comes along and on his first uploaded run beats you by 14 minutes with a 53. And I vividly remember opening up the Discord, seeing you say, hey, someone just uploaded a time of 53 Nightmare. And I was just like, I love this game so much. This game is amazing that someone can do that, that someone can really... Oh, yeah, what did you say? You said I got summoning salted, Tom's great. That I was so confident I had the best run, that I was the best runner, and then some dude just comes out of nowhere and just absolutely destroys me.
I'm gonna have to use that one. Alrighty. Thanks so much for having us, Retro Gaming Live.
This was great. This was a fun time. I was able to solve this game. All right. Do I just hit the button?